It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends up, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Hey, good afternoon. Happy Friday, everybody. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker here on the Full Court Press, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, streaming on the World Wide Web, on the internets, 1069thefan.com, and wherever you may be, take us with you, pull it up on your phone. Download the app, 1069 The Fan mobile app. On the app and on the website, you can find podcasts, past episodes, interviews, bonus audio. You find all kinds of great stuff there. And shortly after we get done off the air, the podcast will be loaded there as well. So a lot of different things to discuss today as we have been doing this time of year on Fridays, giving our definitive predictions of how things will go for Utah State football as they face Vanderbilt, a very solid team on offense and on defense. How will things go for the Aggies on Saturday? And as you're brunching, maybe it's a late breakfast, maybe you sleep in a little bit on Saturday, but at 10:45 kickoff. So we're going to give our predictions, how we think things will go on offense and defense, and give our score predictions. And we'd love to get yours as well. What's your score prediction? How will things go down Saturday in Nashville, Tennessee, between the Utah State Aggies and the Vanderbilt Commodores? 435-339-0321. That's our Young Power Sports Logan text line. That's how you can chime in and give us your score prediction, or tell us how to correctly pronounce Diego Pavia, which thank you, 2444. For sending that in earlier.
Been saying it wrong for like a year and a half now.
Yes, I keep saying Pavia as if it's like a Spanish name, like the two L's and like tortilla. But it's not. That's not how it's spelled, and that's not how it's pronounced. So thank you for sending the official pronunciation. It's Pavia. And then also 2444. Speaking of him, though, I think the Aggies will be able to do enough to slow down Vanderbilt's offense to allow the Aggies to pull ahead late and steal the win. Aggies 29, Vanderbilt 28.
I know this is probably going to be the one where more Aggies predict a win, at least than they did against Texas A&M, where this was the game that I think a lot of Aggie fans thought was going to be the easier game against a P4 opponent. Although I have my doubts about that.
Yeah. Vanderbilt looks very good on offense and on defense. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But this is a team in the top 25 for good reason. And it's not like let me put it this way. They have beaten two other P4 opponents. Yes, they beat up on a lower division school, and they exacted some revenge against another G6 team who beat them last year. But they've looked very solid in all four of their games to date. But for those Aggie fans that are holding out hope for an upset win, you can also keep this in mind. Vanderbilt's opponents, they've turned out to be not very good.
Yeah, they're, I think,
combined 1-10, I think is what I saw.
1-10, but I thought Virginia Tech was 2-2. I thought when I looked at them. I got to look this up real quick because I thought I saw that's what their record was. But yeah, Vanderbilt's opponents have not been particularly fantastic. Oh, they're 1-3. I just got that straight up wrong. I don't know where I saw that, but yeah. Or no, it was South Carolina. South Carolina's 2-2. So I saw somebody say that Vanderbilt's opponents are 1-10. That's just wrong.
It's not totally accurate.
They have 3 wins at least, let alone Georgia State has 1. So that's 4 wins at the very least. I don't have an easy link to Charleston Southern, so I don't know how they're doing. But they're an FCS team, so I don't know if they really count. But FBS opponents have 4 wins, but still all of them have 500 or worse records. 2-1-3 teams and a 2-2 team.
Charleston Southern is 0-4.
Yeah, there you go. So like it's not, maybe it's 1-10 against FBS teams. Maybe that's what it is. Wonder if that was what the opposing records was. It was against FBS teams. They were 1-10. Because I know I saw somebody mention that because there was, I know one guy, I forget his name, fairly prominent college football media guy. I don't know, because I think he's primarily on YouTube or he has a radio show, but he's talking about how Vanderbilt being ranked 18th is like a crime. He has them at 8th.
Yeah, he put him in a top 10.
And then I think it was, who was it from The Athletic? Because that's where I saw the record.
Chris Vanini.
Yeah, Chris Vanini was like 1-10. I think their opponents are like 1-10, and I think the qualifier there was that it was against FBS opponents. Because I can't imagine you get something that basic that wrong. The fact that those opponents have 4 wins total, but still, if you want to nitpick, if you want to find that optimism, you can say, hey, Vanderbilt, I know South Carolina was ranked number 11, but they're not ranked anymore. They're 2-2. I don't know if you count that as a ranked win. It still technically counts as a ranked win. But it's like, hey, if you want to really find that optimism, maybe Vanderbilt hasn't played the strongest teams. Has that inflated their offensive and defensive numbers? I think it's inflated their offense, especially getting 70 points against Georgia State. I don't necessarily think they'll be able to do that against the Aggies. I don't think they will do that against the Aggies, although who knows? Maybe. I mean, they only had 45 points against an FCS team, but I think that, Vanderbilt's not a team that's going to average 49 points a game through the whole season. They're not going to average 12 points allowed through the whole season. But they're still a good team. So I know the offensive numbers and defensive numbers, if you just look at those raw numbers, they look really hard to beat. But I find myself being still somewhat optimistic that the Aggies can keep this close for a decent chunk of the game. I think I might lean a little more pessimistic in my final score prediction, but even I find myself thinking like, hey, I don't know if this team's like that explosive. They're good, but are they that explosive on offense? Are they that, capable on defense to just completely shut a team down? I'm not 100% certain about that. Mind you, they could go out there and beat Utah State 52-3, and maybe that would kind of seal it in my mind that Vanderbilt's for real. But I think that there's room for Utah State to make this competitive. I don't think they're going to win. I'll spoil that for you in my score prediction. But Utah State, if they've actually improved over these last 2 weeks, and it's not just a function of playing easier opponents, then I think they can make things work well because their offense looks better. If it actually is better, they can score 25, 26, 27, into the mid-20s and maybe into the high 20s in points. If their defense really has improved, then maybe they can hold Vanderbilt into the 20s. I have my doubts because, they allowed 30 points to Air Force and, 44 to Texas A&M. So it's like, that's half their games, and the 2 times they've held teams to less than 30 points, one of them is UTEP, considered one of the worst teams in FBS, and the other being an FCS team. So, they need to have showed improvement from where they were in order for me to be confident that Utah State can hold one of the best offenses in the country to below 30 points.
Yes, that is going to be that's going to be a really, really big challenge to slow down that Vanderbilt offense, which has been pretty steady. You look at some of their players, and they don't really jump off the page like, gosh, look at these big, gaudy, explosive numbers. But it's spread out across a lot of different guys, which means there's options. There are variety a variety of different guys and types of guys that are making plays for Vanderbilt. Yes, Diego Pavia is the straw that stirs the drink for Vanderbilt. And they've been drinking pretty good because they're mixing it up. Most of it is creation that happens in the pocket with his legs. But this is an offense that has been fairly efficient in what they want to do. And so while you were talking, actually, I crunched the numbers. So Vanderbilt, their opponents' combined records, 4-12. Utah State's opponents' combined records, 6-8. So yes, Utah State's had maybe a little bit more challenging record of teams that they've had to face, but not by a whole lot.
But I would say
Texas
Vanderbilt's-
A&M stands far and above in the preseason structure.
I think they're carrying 3 of those 6 wins.
Yes. So when you look at kind of who they have faced on their path here, not preseason, but just pre-scheduled to this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the key is that look at the teams Utah State has beat. The teams they've beat are what, 3-8?
Combined 3-8. Yes.
And Vanderbilt's that they've beat are 4-12.
Yeah.
Because Utah State, they played a team that's 3-0 and undefeated, but they lost by 3 touchdowns. More than 3 touchdowns, or 20.
Just over 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, 22 points. Technically,
But
3
scores. Yeah.
So, like, they weren't really competitive, especially in that second half. So, again, that's I don't know. It's hard for me to jump on board that optimism. I've gone back and forth between like Utah State covering the spread, not covering the spread, different things like that. And to me, the linchpin for all this, because I'm pretty confident Utah State's going to do decently well on offense. They're going to be able to, I think, score at least 3 or 4 times. I'm pretty confident. There's a world in which they get shut down, and that usually means if they regress and have a bunch of turnovers, which is something to worry about a little bit because Vanderbilt's done pretty good at creating turnovers. But as long as they're not sloppy, they should be able to get 3 or 4 scores. And so the event, essentially, you're looking at the linchpin being the defense. Does the defense allow a similar number of points as they did against Texas A&M? Does Vanderbilt go for 42, 45, 48 points? Or do you hold them to, somewhere in that 28 to 35 range? This game, whether or not it's competitive, is going to rely pretty much solely on the defense, because that's where I'm trying to figure out, was there true improvement from the last couple of games? Because in the first 3 games, the defense was passable. There were some things you liked, but in the end, the production wasn't where it needed to be. You allow 44 points in one game, you allow 30 points in another. You do allow only 16 to UTEP, but not super impressed by their offense. So it wasn't a good defense in terms of production. But then they were fantastic against McNeese, but consider caliber of opponent. So Utah State needs to prove that them looking really good on defense against McNeese is reflective of improvement and not just the caliber of opponent. And this is where you're really testing that. You're looking at one of the best quarterbacks in the country. One of the most and if he's not just one of the best, top 10 or top 15, he's at the very least one of the most difficult to defend because of his ability to run, just his ability to drive the offense almost by himself. And you saw Utah State struggle against some of those quarterbacks last year. I know that's a completely different year, but you look at Devin Dampier, the way he carved up the defense. But even look at earlier this year when they played Marcel Reed. He ran for 66 yards. He did pretty well. A young quarterback. Now you're facing a veteran mobile quarterback.
Right, yes.
There are some things that really worried me where Pavia just is incredibly efficient and he's incredibly dynamic with his legs. Can Utah State stop that? I'm not so certain they can. They've not shown that they can do that this year. They've not proved they can shut down a dynamic quarterback because the last time they did, they failed. So can they do it against someone who is better than Marcel Reed? That's why I'm not really sharing in the optimism of Utah State holding Vanderbilt like under 30 points, because what have they proved with their defense? Now, could they go out and prove it? Yeah, and I would be wrong about all my assumptions, but I'm not going to give Utah State the benefit of the doubt on defense because they haven't given me any reason to give them the benefit of the doubt for like 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah, this in 2 games back to back. I know there was differences in why, but in back to back games, Utah State gave up, was it over 230 rushing yards in back to back games? Now, Air Force was one of those, and they have a unique style, and that's very much run.
Yeah, I don't really
defense.
count them as like having to face a dynamic quarterback. It's like that's just part of the
unique
offense.
in how they do it. But you know what they gave up in the running game against Texas A&M, that's probably more accurate reflection of what Utah State could likely see this week. And how did they do in trying to slow down the running attack for Texas A&M? And I mean, it was not that great. It wasn't catastrophic, but it wasn't great. So, you know, that's got to be something for Utah State in how they can slow down the running attack for Vanderbilt, which, again, like we said, not gaudy numbers, but solid numbers that keep them moving. And Utah State, their run defense is ranked not that great right now. So they've made some improvements, and I like the trajectory that they are on. I feel more confident that this team can figure out a respectable run defense, but have we seen that consistency? Like, how much have they grown from what happened against Texas A&M? How much better are they in their run fits defensively? Can they contain another very dynamic rushing quarterback?
Yeah, and I think just as important when we're talking about the skill position players, the offensive line it's huge for Vanderbilt. They return a lot of guys with experience. They have, the coach believed it was his best offensive line that he's basically ever coached, at least at Vanderbilt. And that's kind of the big key, because against McNeese, one thing that helped massively with the run game is just that Utah State's defensive tackles were able to just fill the gap and a lot of times just straight up beat the block and get on the tackle. Their 2 leading tacklers in the game were a pair of defensive tackles, which is pretty rare. Usually they're not getting volume tackles. I don't see them being able to pull that same thing off this week. You'd hope that they're able to break those blocks, but at the very least, they need to make sure they're maintaining their gaps and not allowing big holes. Don't allow combo blocks to where, you get double teamed and then allow the other offensive lineman to go up and get a linebacker. You need to force them to, maintain that double team, then leaving the linebacker open to fill the gap and get the tackle. Like, you need to see at least that, if not something of what you saw against McNeese, where the defensive tackles were consistently throwing off blockers and forcing 1 or 2 yard gains. So that's going to be a massive difference, is the offensive line for Vanderbilt is just going to be a whole different caliber than what they've faced the last 2 weeks, where they've been a lot better against the run the last 2 weeks. Air Force, it's relative against the run. They allowed 266, but a good Air Force team will average 380. So relatively, that was pretty good for that. They filled the gaps pretty well in that game. And then against McNeese, they were fantastic in filling those gaps. But those 2 offensive lines aren't what they're about to face against Vanderbilt. They need to absolutely step up on that defensive line, that front 7, and be able to fill those gaps and just shut those gaps down. Otherwise, Pavia and Cedric Alexander are going to be running all over the place and doing similar to what Texas A&M did, where A&M, I think they had they had 235 yards rushing. Average 5.2 per carry. Their top 2 rushers both averaged north of 6.5 yards per carry. Utah State just couldn't stop the run consistently, no matter who was running it for A&M. And if they're not on top of their game, if they're not showing those same improvements they showed in the last 2 weeks in this week, then we're just going to see a repeat of what happened down at College Station.
Yeah, and there's certain things you can simulate in practice. You can have your scout team or your twos or whatever, try to simulate some things that the opponent's going to try to accomplish with this is how they form up, this is how they scheme, but you cannot simulate speed and you cannot simulate strength, size. If you don't have that on your team, it's really hard to simulate that.
Your scout team doesn't have 6'3", 320-pound, SEC caliber linemen on it.
And if you did, they wouldn't be on the scout team.
Yeah.
So that's always going to be the challenge, right? They'll scheme, they'll prepare, but it's the old Mike Tyson, the great famous philosopher Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until you get hit in the face, or punched in the mouth. So, they can scheme and prepare and plan, but it may take a minute for them to, okay, this is what it really is like. The big difference here, and I think the assistant here for Utah State, is that they just went through this a few weeks ago. So how much can they still recall and remember about their experience at Texas A&M, where it's not too far removed for them, that it took them a while. They finally made their adjustments, and then they were stable against Texas A&M in the second half. But how much can they get back into that? And so they're not so far behind so early in the game that it's just a matter of maintaining rather than falling further behind.
Yeah.
So that is a big concern. There's that advantage that they've had this experience already this season, but again, you think you're ready until you get pushed around by a bigger, more physical team.
Yeah, you think you're ready. You think you have the game plan. You think you've learned. They got punched in the mouth. When they played Texas A&M, but in the end, like, if the other team's bigger and more skilled than you, how can you make up for that? You can. These SC teams, just because they have the bigger and stronger and faster players, they lose all the time.
Yeah.
To G6 teams. Vanderbilt did it last year.
Yeah, they lost to Georgia State last year.
So there are ways to make up for that. A lot of it just comes down to execution. Some of it's luck. Some of it may be Vanderbilt if they overlook the Aggies. But you got to find some way to mitigate some of those disadvantages you have. And Utah State's shown some ability to do that, because I think they still do have pretty solid athletes. They just may not have as much depth or experience, I think, is another thing that they're lacking. But they're going to have to grow up quick if they're going to get a win here against Vanderbilt.
All right, we got to take a timeout. We're giving some of our predictions of how things will go down. Talking about the Utah State defense versus the Vanderbilt offense. Let's flip that around a little bit coming on the other side. But also let's get your score predictions for how you think the game will go down. 435-339-0321 on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line.
No matter what the conditions, DD Auto and Salvage can get your vehicle up and off your property. Now is the time to plan to make extra cash by calling DD Auto and Salvage and moving that old vehicle. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy to get rid of your junker vehicles, paying you the most money possible. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
See store for details.
When grid failures and severe weather cause power outages, your business might take a hit, or at home, you could lose your refrigerated food storage. Generac Standby Power Solutions help ensure an uninterrupted power supply. Generac is the #1 brand of standby generators. Get yours today from Golden Spike Electric, your trusted source for safety and security. Golden Spike Electric, powering your peace of mind. Online at gscgenerators.com or call 257-3016. They also service other models.
This is Ryan at My Mattress. A few years ago, I saw this sign hanging in a gas station. It said price, quality, service. Pick 2 out of the 3. Now, it's funny, and I did laugh, but at My Mattress, we don't even want to do business unless we can do all 3. Price, quality, and service. We have a 90-day sleep guarantee, 90-day price guarantee, and we will answer the phone if you have a warranty concern. At My Mattress, we deliver, we have financing, we strive to be price, quality, and service every day. Isn't it time to sleep exceptionally? Only at My Mattress.
Hi, this is Ashley with LSS Insurance. Medicare can seem complicated, but it doesn't have to be. Let us help. We'll answer all your questions and get you specific information that fits your needs. Medicare is not one size fits all. We'll help you find the right coverage for you. Call 752-9493. You can ignore the TV and the junk mail. We'll get you the exact information you need. We will help you access the benefits that are important to you. Call LSS Insurance at 752-9493.
Friday Night Lights are back. And so is the best high school sports coverage in northern Utah. From Ridgeline to Bear River, Green Canyon to Logan, Skyview to Mountain Crest. Cache Valley Media Group brings fans full play-by-play action on the radio and video all season long. It's going to be an unforgettable year. And your business can be a part of the excitement. Put your brand front and center with thousands of loyal local sports fans. Contact Cache Valley Media Group today. Get your business in the game.
It doesn't matter who you root for. The Full Court Press has all the high school sports covered. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Young Power Sports, they sponsor our text line. They've also are gearing up for winter. Don't wait for the snow. Get ready now. Blowout pricing is available on Polaris and Ski-Doo snowmobiles, up to $4,000 off MSRP. They've got transparent pricing there, including all dealer fees, no surprises, just great deals and gear built for adventure. Go check it out. Young Power Sports, Logan, your headquarters for winter fun. Got a number of texts coming through. So let's burn through some of these before we continue on with our predictions for Saturday morning, late morning for Utah State at Vanderbilt. We already got the score prediction from 2444, predicting an Aggie win, 29-28, 3933. Aggies 38-35. Got some optimistic fans here, 6391. Looks like the 1-10 is FBS opponents, like you thought. That win is South Carolina against Virginia Tech, so as bad as it could be.
Yeah, because they're playing each other. I think that's what the athletic writer pointed out.
Well, Georgia State is FBS, so it must be, I don't know where that 1-10 really comes from.
No, it's those opponents' wins against FBS teams.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. So
for
Georgia
instance,
State,
Georgia State, they're 0-3 against FBS teams. Their one win is over Murray State, who's an FCS
South
team.
Carolina, Virginia Tech, they may have some of their wins.
And they've
aren't
played
against.
each other, so the win of so it's their opponent's
versus
record against FBS teams, and that one win happens to be like against one of, two of Vanderbilt's opponents have played each other. And that's the only win that any of their opponents have against FBS teams is when they played each other.
I get it now. Thanks for the assist there, 6391. 0694. Vandy is playing well, but at least the game day environment at Vandy won't be near as overwhelming as A&M. I think Vandy Stadium holds less than many Mountain West schools. The Aggies may not win, but the boys shouldn't be intimidated by the atmosphere.
Less than some. I'm not actually sure. I can only think of one off the top of my head that I know holds more, and that's Allegiant Stadium, because Vanderbilt Stadium holds like 40,000. I think Fresno might.
So comparable to Fresno, Boise State.
Boise's in the 30,000.
We're close to 40.
Yeah, I think both of them are in the mid to high 30s. Colorado State might have the highest capacity aside from UNLV, who I don't really count because they're not going to fill that thing anyway.
Yeah, they don't ever do the upper bowl.
And San Diego State's is in the 30,000. So it's they've typically not gotten more attendance than a lot of a lot of Mountain West teams have had better attendance, but capacity-wise, I think they still have most Mountain West teams beat.
5338. The 5338 Sports Reeducation Academy and Think Tank updated AI predictive engine says that the Aggies will fall just barely short against the Vanderbilt Commodores tomorrow, 32-19. And then also recommends hiring Mike Gundy as USU football PR coordinator on the condition that he brings Cooper Bassett and DJ Tialavea back with him.
Oh, is that where they both went to Oklahoma State?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, those I really like those position coaches.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Solid. So
I don't know if Bronco's going to do that because he has his coordinators,
he has his guys,
and his assistant coaches. He basically just brought his entire staff over with him, save for
John Beck.
Yeah, Beck.
He went to Utah.
Yeah, I was thinking Eck, and I was like, no, that's their actual head coach. Just he went to Utah. So yeah, he has his staff. It was why it was kind of weird, when they gave this giant raise to the assistants, but it was that's just Broncos assistants, which they're doing a fine job. can't knock them. They've done pretty well. So I guess
far, so good.
They're earning their paychecks at this point.
9315 with a couple of texts. USU 29, others from Vandy 28. Just really the same.
The second 29-28 prediction we got. 2
Great
4
minds
4 4
think alike. Yeah. Here's how we win the game. It's easy. It'll be just like Bobby Boucher in the Bourbon Bowl. I'll have someone stand out like Bobby Boucher. Just trust the process. Trust Bronco. I trust.
I mean, Bronco Mendenhall has a record of 8-28 against current P4 ranked teams. I should specify it was against teams that are now, because that includes games against like Utah back when they were both in Mountain West or TCU. So like teams that are now in the P4 that were ranked at the time they played him. He has a record of 8-28. It's not terrible, but like Utah State's also 3-29, I think, against teams ranked in the top 20. So like you can trust Bronco, but the odds are that not going to win.
Yeah, that trust can only get you so far in seeing a victory. 8968. With the way the Aggies got handled against Texas A&M, maybe they won't want to remember what happened.
I don't think it was that bad though. Like, because there's
they had a
losing
really bad series,
there's
which
losing,
stands out.
There's losing 44-22, which is, you got beat. But I mean, the spread was like 33 or something like that. So they were expected to lose a lot worse. But there's losing by 3 touchdowns, and then there's losing like 59-0 or whatever it was to Alabama. Like, there's losing by several scores, and then there's just getting, dragged all over the turf for 60 minutes. And I don't feel like that's what happened. Utah State wasn't really in the game, but they weren't, it's not like Texas A&M went out back and dug a grave for them in the middle of the game. Like, there's kind of there's a whole spectrum of losses, and Utah State's lost Texas A&M while, again, multiple scores, and they weren't super competitive for much of that game. They weren't just like completely demolished in that one. Unlike games where they've played against Alabama or again that LSU team in 2019, and even like USC last year, where it's just like you were just not competitive in the slightest. You didn't present any challenge whatsoever. The Aggies made some plays against Texas A&M, and I think they're going to make some plays against Vanderbilt. Is it going to lead to a win? We're all pretty doubtful of that. Some of the text line are not doubtful of that. They think Utah State can make enough plays to get a win.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world for Utah State to get a win here. It'd be unlikely, but it wouldn't be like an FCS team beating like, a top 10 team in the country. Like, it wouldn't be that kind of unlikely. Utah State's not this completely helpless team the way they kind of were last year. Like, they can go out and make some plays for themselves on both sides of the ball. If they can get some turnovers, they can get some consistency on the offense, they've got the means to kind of take it to Vanderbilt. So we'll see exactly how all this goes. The predictions are all likely going to come in for Vanderbilt, but I think they have a chance to at least prove some things to themselves in this game, even if it doesn't result in a W.
Yeah, if Utah State's going to have a chance in this game, it's by their offense staying on the field, having drives that move them up and down the field, give their defense a chance to rest, so when they come in, they can be aggressive and get after Diego Pavia. But also the Utah State offense has to find the end zone. They can't kick field goals. If they want a chance in this game, they have to find pay dirt. And Utah State's stronger unit, if you want to put it that way, is their offense. Like, their most prolific, most efficient part of their team is their offense. So they're going to have to lean on that offense to score points. They have to keep Bryson Barnes clean, and they have to find the end zone. To do that, that will take pressure off the defense. The defense is already going to have a ton of pressure on them, but they have to have help from the offense to give them a chance to get Vanderbilt off the field.
Yeah, I think you've hit it on the head there, where it's like, I mean, I talk about where Utah State wins this game based on like their defense holding Vanderbilt to like under 30 points, but the offense has a lot in which they can assist there. where just stay on the field. Sometimes your best defense, in this case, can be a good offense. The one thing that worries me a little bit is the Utah State's offense just tends to be quick hit even when it's successful. Sub 3-minute drives for the most part. Shades of the 2018 offense, where pretty much every one of their scoring drives, I think their longest scoring drive this year is like 4 minutes or something like that. If they'd have not fumbled in the goal line against McNeese, they'd have had a 6-minute scoring drive. But it's a quick hit team. But hey, just be on the field. And you know what? If there's a huge difference between having a 2-minute scoring drive and a 2-minute in real time, drive on offense. Where hey, if you score a touchdown, even if the defense is back on the field quickly, hey, that's a momentum boost. Hey, that's some confidence, and the defense can be a little fired up. So just the offense doing their job as best they can and taking advantage of their opportunities. That's where, again, I think this is hinging maybe a bit more on the defense, but that's where you provide a massive help to the defense. If Utah State's offense is getting thrown off the field quickly, well, that's just more possessions for Diego Pavia to go out there and score a bunch of points. If you can stay on the field long enough and control possession enough as a Utah State offense that instead of maybe having 13 or 14 possessions, they have like 11 or 12, then that's going to be a big deal. That narrows the margin, potentially in this game, just because if you don't have the ball, you can't score. So that's where I think Utah State's offense will play the biggest role. Is obviously they got to score points, but they're going to provide ideally they would provide a big assist to their defense.
Yeah. This Utah State football team, with its variety of offensive play calling coming from Kevin McGibbon, with its variety and versatility of playmakers, has to keep Vanderbilt guessing. They have to keep them on their toes, but they also have to keep moving the chains. So it's this is one of those games where I kind of wished Utah State had more variety of options for wide receiver playmakers, but I'm encouraged by how Brady Boyd and Braden Pegan have evolved as playmakers. I'm also encouraged by how Miles Davis and Javen Jacobs have evolved as playmakers. We haven't seen as much out of the tight ends. Part of that is some injury-related stuff, but this could be another one of those games where the tight ends play a really important role, even if it's only a catch or two in key moments. But there is enough offensive variety developing here from Utah State that I think Utah State can score points, but can they score enough to overtake what Vanderbilt can do? And to give you a sense of Vanderbilt and their offense, what's going on right now, this is a team that the last time they scored 70 points or more was over 100 years ago. The last time they scored more than 30-plus points a game in their first four was over 100 years ago. This is a team that is not used to the type of production that's happening right now. This is a special time in Vanderbilt's history, but is it happening against teams that really aren't that good? So that's where you kind of have to sift through a few things. Yes, they're very dynamic. Yes, they're explosive. And yes, they're hitting on things that they haven't seen in 100 years. But they're also doing it against teams that are struggling right now. Utah State is arguably one of the better teams that they have faced to this point in their season.
Potentially. We'll see. They're better than Georgia State. They're better than Charleston Southern or whatnot. They're probably better than Virginia Tech. We'll see about South Carolina.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, going back to something you said about moving the chains, I think that's a massive thing, but kind of baked into that. And we talked about this either yesterday or the day before, but winning first down. They've got to be able to win first down consistently, because that's something they weren't doing as much against UTEP and Texas A&M. They did it a lot on their scoring drives, like they'd get big chunk plays on first and second down, but if they ever didn't get like that, 7 or 8 yard gain on first down, or 10 or 11 yard gain on second down, well, then they were screwed. And while that can be pretty typical for a lot of offenses where you put yourself in third and long and you're in trouble, but the Aggies just need to make sure they don't get into that position a ton. They were always in 3rd and 9, always in 3rd and 8 in those games. And they need to avoid that at all costs in this game. Do not find yourselves in 3rd and 7+. Because it was something Bronco Mendenhall talked about with Vanderbilt's pass rush, which I've been saying they had 10 sacks all week. They actually have 11 sacks on the season. They're ranked 25th in the country in sacks. And like they're a team that'll draw up some really exotic stuff on 3rd down for blitzes. And Utah State has shown they can't handle a whole lot of exotic stuff. They can hardly handle just basic 6-man pressure because they've given up tons of sacks this season. They're good part of pass protection these last 2 weeks. They still gave up 4. So, and then they gave up a sack to an FCS team. So they're not allowing nothing over these last few weeks. They're still allowing something, and it was slightly better than 6 per game over the first 2 games. So obviously pass protection on 1st and 2nd down is going to be paramount, but those are going to be fairly simple blitzes and pressures. 4-man rush, maybe a 5-man rush if they're feeling risky at that moment. But you get yourself in 3rd and long, Utah State's in massive trouble because they've shown they can't block in that situation.
Yeah.
So
it's problematic.
Yeah, so unless something drastically changes, then 3rd and 9 is going to equal very bad things for Bryson Barnes, who needs to be staying upright for most of this game if Utah State's going to have any kind of chance.
A few quick texts before we hit a timeout. Again, Young Power Sports of Logan text line is 435-339-0321. 8968 asking, is the Aggie game on TV tomorrow? Let's just hope for an Aggie game of the century. Yes, it is. It's on SEC Network. It kicks off at 10:45 on the SEC Network. If you have that in your...
Might kick off sort of on time since that's the morning game. It's the first one of the day for the most part. So it'll probably still kick off at 10:55. But
yeah. And then 0298. This is a money game. My only wish is nobody gets hurt. If anyone does, it's only on Diana. Only one power opponent a year.
Yeah, I know Bronco wasn't too thrilled. I had an old article about this because he talked about it even before the A&M game where it's you'd rather only play one of these games a year. I know it's made Utah State a little richer. They've been making about $2.5 million off of bye games the last 2-3 years as opposed to 1 or 1.5. But, Bronco's not happy about that. And I imagine Cam Walker's going to be on that same page. Yeah. And the fact that playing 2 of these games is probably not really going to happen with how much the P4 are restricting their own schedules.
There just won't be that many opportunities.
Yeah. There's only roughly one P4 game in non-conference per G6 team. Some variance, but it's roughly there. So you'll probably get one pretty consistently, but I think the days of having 2 in a year are pretty much about to be gone.
Yeah, with all these P4 teams going to 9 conference games, and then part of their expectation is that you have to play one more A4 team or one more P4 team outside of conference. There are
3 of the 4 require it, and the Big Ten's the only one that doesn't. But I don't think that's going to last long. I think they're going to do it as well.
Change too. All right, quick timeout. When we come back, Jason and I will give our predictions. What will the final score be when the game is over in Nashville? It's so lovely to get your predictions as well on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line 435-339-0321.
New news from the Riverwoods Conference Center. All-inclusive pricing is now available for every occasion. Imagine your dream wedding, your daughter's quinceañera, corporate retreats, family parties, business conferences, or expos. Whether you're searching for a small private area, a breathtaking outdoor reception by the river, or an event that accommodates up to 2,000 people, the Riverwoods Conference Center makes event planning effortless with its perfect combination of beauty, service, catering, and now all-inclusive pricing. Visit theriverwoods.com or call 750-5151 for more information today.
This is Catherine Buse with Cache Valley Bank, and we understand that concerns about fraud can weigh heavily on you. Your peace of mind is important to us. That's why we're committed to looking out for you and your family. Our team keeps a vigilant eye on your account. If you ever have concerns or need support, we're just a call or visit away. Whether you need advice or just someone to talk to, our friendly staff is ready to help. We're more than just a bank. We're your neighbors, and we care about your security. Visit your local branch today. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Hi friends, this is Lydia at The Sportsman on Main Street, inviting you to check out our new fall arrivals. For women, this is our first season carrying Free People movement, and you will love it. We also have great fresh looks from Viore, Pendleton, Cool, and Birkenstock. At The Sportsman, we try really hard to find unique products. For the men, you will love our new shirts, jackets, sweaters, and pants from Cool, Fjallraven, Viore, and Pendleton. From colognes and perfumes to skis, we've got you covered. Come and see us at The Sportsman on Main Street in downtown Logan and look amazing this fall.
Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat is thrilled to welcome Dr. Jackson Deere to their team of trusted specialists. Dr. Deere joins Drs. Blotter and Robinette to provide exceptional medical and surgical care for your ears, nose, throat, and related structures of the head and neck. Appointments are now available. Whether it's allergies, hearing, or sinus concerns, Cache Valley ENT is here to help you live the life you deserve. Welcome Dr. Deere to Cache Valley and the team at Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat, now serving Logan, Providence, Tremonton, Preston, and Montpelier.
The Cache Valley Media Group's Holiday Gift Show is now accepting applications for the 2025 show November 14th and 15th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. Show your creative, unique, festive, and one-of-a-kind gift ideas to thousands of holiday shoppers. It's a wonderful gift show that is truly a step above. Search Logan Holiday Gift Show for details or call 752-1390 for more information. The Logan Holiday Gift Show, a premier holiday shopping destination. Space is limited, so reserve yours today.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Join the show by calling 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker, giving our score predictions for how things will play out at Vanderbilt tomorrow. Reminder, KVNU game day coverage begins at 9 a.m. Saturday morning on 102.1 FM, 610 a.m. J.D. Walker, Stockton Jukes will get you ready right up to kickoff. They'll be there right up to the coach's comments, which happen around 10:30. And kick off at 10:45. Full play-by-play coverage on KVNU. So have a radio on with you, or if you're out doing yard work, watching games, pull it up on your mobile app, on the KVNU mobile app, and take it with you, or your smart speaker. And then when the game is over, we'll be back on the air with KVNU Aggie Call with Aggie Hall of Famer Tyler Larson and myself. I'm just a nobody, but I'm there too.
You're there.
But you'll be there. You'll be sharing some of the audio from the post-game presser.
Yeah, I'll be down in Syracuse.
Work into the broadcast. So
I won't be in Nashville. I was there earlier this year.
That's true. You've already been.
I was
in
Nashville like 4 months early.
So how is this game going to play out, Jason? We've been talking about offensively, defensively, some of the concerns, maybe some of the opportunities for Utah State. But when it's all said and done, what's that final score going to look like?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a pretty similar scoreline, I think, to Texas A&M, Utah State. I don't know if it'll be exact, but you're going to see some similar things where A&M was maybe a little more explosive, got some big plays. I think Vanderbilt will be a little more methodical. I don't know if they'll be quite as explosive. They'll get some chunk plays. They'll get their 15, 20-yard plays. I think Eli Stowers is going to cause some big problems for the secondary. I don't know if the Aggies are going to have a great answer for him. Maybe Brevin Hamblin is able to have a good game against him. We'll see. But I think Stower is going to cause some problems. Diego Pavia is just going to cause a whole lot of problems. He might rush for north of 100 yards. And so, again, I don't know if Vanderbilt's going to be explosive, but I think the Aggies defense is going to have a real problem getting off the field on defense, as Vanderbilt is fantastic at converting on third downs, and they can just grind teams down, even if they're not getting explosive, which they have been getting a decent number of explosives. I think they're in the top 30 for most like 10 or 20-yard plays, but they don't get too many above 30 yards. So it's usually chunk plays, but not massive explosives. And I think that's going to play out against the Aggies. Chunk plays, but not like 70, 80-yarders. With Utah State on offense, I think Bryson Barnes is going to spend too much time on his back or running away from defenders as he passes for him to be as effective. He'll probably be similar to what he did against A&M, where might have negative rushing yards because of the number of sacks he takes, and he's probably not going to complete much more than 50% of his passes, just because I think he's going to be running away from defenders too much. The Aggies are still going to find ways to make plays. They have guys that can do that. They did it against A&M, even when Bryson was running for his life most of the time. So I think the Aggies are going to get some points, but probably more in the second half when they eventually find their rhythm, and also maybe when the game is possibly already a little too far out of hand. So I've got Vanderbilt winning this one 42-20.
It's an interesting score there, Jason. We're not that far off.
Can't imagine we would be.
I mean, a lot of the reasons that you've outlined are similar to how I think this game could play out. I think Utah State will have some opportunities to move the ball. But I think the biggest thing here is containing a very good offense that's been explosive in their first 4 games. Utah State still has some challenges with stopping the run. So I think that Diego Pavia and the Vanderbilt offense will still have some success. I think the Utah State, if they want to give themselves better opportunity, they've got to turn the ball over. They have to make stops and get the ball in their hands. But in the end, I think that Vanderbilt offense is very solid. Their defense is also very solid. I'm a little surprised with the over-under on this game by the Vegas lines and how much they've got it at, which suggests that it's maybe not that high of a scoring game. My score prediction, which I put together before I saw what the line was and the over-under and all that stuff for the Vegas people, isn't that much different from yours. I've got Vanderbilt at 39, but I similarly have Utah State at 20. I think the Aggies will get a couple scores. Some of those might be by field goals. But I think the Aggies will keep it closer than the Vegas odds people put out there. I think it's 23.5 is the current odds. But I think Utah State keeps it close, but it's just going to be a challenge to get that victory on the road at a very good SEC team, which is on a pretty good hot streak right now. Love to get your score predictions as well. How you think this game's going to go. 435-339-0321.
Express Tires for less.
Safety and comfort on the road are Express Tire's top priority. As a Point S team member, count on peace of mind with an inclusive warranty that includes nationwide protection. Any brand, any size, better pricing. No appointment necessary on the highway at 3200 North Main.
Express Tires for less.
S.E. Needham Jewelers is where Utah gets engaged. Couples throughout the state buy their rings from S.E. Needham Jewelers because of our low prices, extensive ring selection, and extraordinary benefits and services with financing available. Go to seneedham.com to learn more. We have many unique and beautiful engagement rings starting at $500. You'll find affordable engagement rings with our integrity price guarantee. This is why we are where Utah gets engaged. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
At Mountain Valley Heating and Air, it's more than just service. They provide top-quality installations for both residential and commercial spaces. So you're not just getting equipment, you're getting a whole team of professionals dedicated to making sure you and your family truly feel the love. Whether it's a brand new installation or replacing an old system, trust the experts who care. Feel the love with Mountain Valley Heating and Air. That's mtnvalleyhvac.com.
It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Keep your car running at its best with the help from Napa Auto Parts. Need a new battery or wiper blades? They've got the best brands. They can even help you install them right on the spot at the store. Locally owned from Preston to Providence. So, yeah, we've been giving our score predictions for the Utah State Vanderbilt game on Saturday. Love to get yours as well. 435-339-0321. We've had some on the text line positive for the Aggies, thinking the Aggies can get an upset, which would be awesome. I think that Utah State might be on a path to get there, but I don't think they're quite there yet.
Yeah, I just don't know if this team is beating a ranked like P4 opponent. Most of the Aggies' wins against ranked teams have been against G6 teams, or at the time G6. Like their most recent ranked win was like against BYU, who was independent at the time, but future P4. But yeah, it's just like I feel like this Aggie team, at their very best, can win a game like this. Which I don't think I could have said that about the last 2-3 seasons of Aggie teams. Like 2021 is probably the last time that I think I would say like, hey, this team at their best can beat a ranked team. Don't think I really could have said that about the last few years. At least looking back, maybe I would have said it at the time, this team at their peak. But like, this team's got some athleticism. It's got some size. It's got some skill. Not like the best skill at wide receiver or running back we've ever seen, or but I think overall, you're not even necessarily the best skill at quarterback. I think we've seen better quarterbacks than Bryson Barnes. But they're good enough to go out there and make plays, and I think they've got a really great offensive coordinator who's made the absolute most of the skill that he's got and the versatility, because that's maybe where they have the advantage, where they have more versatility in their skill positions, which they're taking advantage of.
Stick around, a lot more to discuss here on the Full Court Press. Did get a score prediction from 7241. Utah State, 1,000,000. Vanderbilt, 3.
There we go.
More predictions coming up next hour on the Full Court Press.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. Seattle took a gamble in the offseason, handing Sam Darnold a 3-year, $100 million contract after shipping out Geno Smith. It raised some eyebrows. Was Seattle ready to start over on a potential one-year wonder who had already bounced from New York to Carolina to San Francisco to Minnesota? But on Thursday night, the bet looked a whole lot better. He showed the kind of poise and precision that once made him a top 5 pick and came up with a big play in the fourth quarter, setting up what proved to be the game-winning field goal. Now, Jason Myers missed the field goal, but instead of folding, Darnold answered with the kind of drive that head coaches dream about. And ultimately, game winner after 17 unanswered points from Arizona had swung momentum. This wasn't about the stat sheets or highlight plays. It was about answering the bell when his team needed him the most. Cold-blooded, calm, franchise-caliber quarterback play. Not bad, and maybe money well spent. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.
I am dedicated.